Hello. We're joined today by Stephen Howard, the Advocacy Director of In Defense of Christians, one of the Armenian National Committee of America's greatest coalition partners. Stephen has been with them for many years, has performed exceptionally well for this very, very vital organization. I've shared in the past, and I'd like to share again, that In Defense of Christians is America's answer to a century of indifference to the plight of Christians and persecuted minorities around the world. They do remarkable work. They punch well above their weight. They are a voice for the voiceless abroad, but also in many ways a voice for the voiceless here in America. They have given voice to a constituency of Americans who care deeply about the plight of fellow Christians and others abroad who are persecuted for their religious beliefs, but who never really had their voice heard. And now, thank God, because of IDC, because of the great work that Stephen's done and his colleagues, Tufik and the others, Sarah, their voice is heard loud and clear. They have a place at the table wherever religious freedom, religious persecution is discussed in the U.S. government, whether that's the executive branch, whether it's the legislative branch, state governments all around the country. They have, in very short order, gone from 0 to 60 in like 2.4 seconds. A remarkable organization with a remarkable team. I can't speak highly enough of Stephen. We've been in the trenches together for years, fighting so many battles together. We'll go into some of those in a moment, but I'd just like to thank you, Stephen, for being with us today, and to invite you to tell us a bit about the great work of IDC and the journey that you've taken with this wonderful organization.
Oh, definitely. And Aram, it's an honor to be with you. I've been with IDC for just a little over 4 years now. And, over the course of the time that we've been in those trenches fighting together for things such as the recognition of genocide by ISIS against minorities in Iraq and Syria, successful advocacy for congressional recognition of the Armenian genocide, working with ANCA and with you has been one of by far the best parts about my work with IDC. It's very rewarding. And I think coming and joining the organization too, as a young person, as a young advocate, I've just really enjoyed looking up to you and to your organization. And I've learned so much from you about how to advocate for Christians who are persecuted across the region. So it's meant a lot. And I know that for IDC in general as an organization, all of the successes that we've been able to accomplish in our work is very much connected with everything that you all have done at the ANCA. And I know that every time I talk to our president, Tofik Baklini, he always tells me, that you're his brother. And so that makes you my uncle. And I take that very seriously. And but it has been a pleasure, the work that we have done. And everything since 2014, when the organization was started, responding to that genocide against minorities. And your group ANCA came up big in that campaign. You really stood in solidarity with Christians, Yazidis, and other minorities who were victims of that genocide, because who really understands the plight of genocide, really. And it's very few people groups that have suffered the way that the Armenian community has, especially over the last century. And I think that the way that you've all been able to advocate not only for yourselves, but stand in solidarity with others has been really impactful. So the work that we've done together has been historic, and I can't wait to see what the next decade will show for our groups.
Even when IDC was first founded, I mean, right out of the box, you took on like the heaviest of heavy lifts, and the designation of genocide against persecuted Christians in the Middle East, in Syria and Iraq by ISIS and other extremists. That was an extremely heavy lift, given the powerful institutional forces that resist designations of genocide. And you did not shy away from that at all. And even some of our most devoted friends, our personal friends and organizational allies, doubted, is this possible? Why are you, sort of reaching so high? And you guys delivered. You delivered by being principled, by being persistent, by being very professional. And I think that was in many ways a watershed moment in U.S. foreign policy. You helped America. In a sense, we served the persecuted, right? But we served America as well by helping America become the kind of nation that lives up to its creed, that we don't just talk the talk about, the poor folks abroad who are being persecuted for their faith. No, now we turn that into policy. And that's really been a remarkable thing. I think I shared at one of the banquets, IDC banquets some years ago, that IDC does the work of the Lord in the language of legislation, and that's really vital. And you also teach others that 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 how very much is possible, and that might be like the most powerful lesson you can give in politics, which is to help people understand what is possible, that we can work in concert toward these very very worthwhile aims, and they're all heavy lifts. They're tough ones. I mean, we'll talk about the countries that you're dealing with here. These are heavy hitters. These are countries with very very serious influence in DC. But IDC is going out and saying, look, we're going to improve the situation for the persecuted, and we're going to deal with these geopolitical realities, but we're not going to surrender. We're not going to retreat. We're going to go forward. And it's been just really a legacy now of 7 years of steady progress. And I think it's just remarkable. Maybe we could touch on some of the areas so the new battles that lie ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. It very well said, Aram. And this year, and really just in general, I really divide IDC's work into three different categories that I'll go into, and the work that the ANCA that you do intersects with each of them. So I'll allow you to kind of chime in and share about the important work that the ANCA has played in leading advocacy in DC for each of these areas. But obviously, the overall mission of our organization is to advocate for the preservation of Christianity in the Middle East. A century ago, Christians were 20% of the region's population, and today they are less than 3%. And your organization knows this better than anyone else, but obviously the Armenian genocide is obviously one of the key pivotal events that caused that intense demographic decline. And so the challenge that we're facing now is that Christianity is legitimately at threat of becoming extinct in the very land where it was born. And so part number one of our work is advocating for Christian communities in the Middle East in countries where they are strong. And when we look, in the Middle East in particular, where Christianity is doing well in terms of numbers, is really in two countries. We see it in Lebanon and we see it in Egypt, that there are strong Christian communities. And what's really unique about Lebanon is that the community is politically empowered and has full equality. And Christians and Muslims have worked together in Lebanon to build a democratic system. Saint Pope John Paul II even called it a message for the world of what religious coexistence looks like. Unfortunately, what we're seeing today in Lebanon are the convergence of multiple factors that are leading to a possibly destabilization of the entire country. People are concerned it could implode into conflict. It could become a failed state. And so really what we have been doing for the last several months, certainly over the course of our organization's existence, but definitely in recent days, is standing with the patriarch of the Maronite Catholic Church, as he's called for Lebanon to be a neutral country in the region, to truly be a Switzerland of the Middle East, which will be the best way that you can incubate Lebanon from all these other conflicts that we're seeing in the region, whether it's Saudi Arabia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, calling for continued U.S. support, obviously, for the Lebanese armed forces and the role that they play in securing and stabilizing the country, calling for accountability for new leaders politically to step up. We're tired of the old political bosses and the role that they've played for humanitarian assistance as well. Most recently as well, what the Maronite Patriarch has called for, and there was even a demonstration at Bakirki in Lebanon this past Saturday. There does need to be a UN conference on Lebanon, on stabilizing Lebanon. The US and France in particular are two countries that can play a key role in stabilizing Lebanon. And then the second country where Christians are strong, but unfortunately not equal, is Egypt, where they're approximately 10% of the population. There's probably about 10 million Christians in Egypt. Some estimates go even higher than that, but the most conservative would be 10 million. What we see is they're just second-class citizens. While there's a lot of them in Egypt, they're discriminated against. They can't. There's entire jobs that they are disqualified. Like they can't work in the highest level security positions in Egypt. There are all these permits that are required to construct churches, and other permits that are required to open a constructed church that are not in place for mosques, for example. So, and then we're also seeing issues where sometimes mobs will attack Christians, burning homes. There was a tragic situation where a 70-year-old woman named Suet Thabet was actually stripped naked by three men and dragged through the streets of a village in Minya province, in an act of public shaming because of some rumors that were circulating about her son in the community. And the three men who dragged her through the streets were all acquitted. And so this happens all the time. People attack Christians and they don't get punished for it. So in Egypt, the message is very simple: equality. Punish people who break the law. No more discrimination. Um, it's very simple. It's a very simple message. We just want our people to be treated equal. So I'll just highlight HRES 117 on Egypt, introduced by French Hill and David Siciliani, a bipartisan resolution calling for Coptic Christians to be treated equally. I want to thank you and the ANCA for the support that you've given to the resolution. And as you rightfully highlighted, for Armenians, this is a big deal because for Armenians who are members of the Armenian Apostolic Church, you're in full communion with the Coptic Orthodox Church. So these are your brothers and sisters in the most intimate of ways. And so it's a great cause to advocate for. And then I'll just add, if you move a little bit beyond the direct region, we see strong Christian communities, and obviously in Armenia, right? We obviously Greece, Cyprus, with our Hellenic partners at the Hellenic American Leadership Council, and even more recently, we're very concerned about the situation in Ethiopia, which is home to an ancient Christian community. So a pivotal part of our work is working to ensure that these countries with large Christian populations are stable and thriving. And so your group has been pivotal to that. But the challenges are numerous, to say the least.
Stephen, I know that so many Armenians in the U.S. Lived for many years in Lebanon and consider Lebanon their home, their homeland as much as Armenia or America. They feel very, very deep connection. It's profound, and it meant a lot. I think that also that the genocide resolutions that were passed in 2019 cited the Ottoman Empire's genocide of the Maronite population in Lebanon and elsewhere in the Ottoman Empire. These are important, I think, connections, and I think that the concern that we have very, very deep concern for Lebanon, and share your fears for the future of Lebanon. In terms of the Coptic community in Egypt, I think IDC is really, in many ways, pioneered this issue on Capitol Hill. I've been, and I think you as well, are very encouraged by the Coptic community, Coptic American communities organizing. I think in just the last 5 years or so, we've seen really powerful organizing going on in the community. And I think that's taking place in parallel to the work that IDC has done. HRES 117, I think, is very thoughtful, very balanced piece of legislation that deserves all of our support. You mentioned also the partnership with the Hellenic community. I mean, these are there's a lot of different forces here. Actually, you have the Hellenic family, you have the Armenian family, you have those with roots in Lebanon, Maronites, and others. You have the Coptic community to that, which I think now has something like 200 or 180, 190 churches across America. The Ethiopian community. It's really, there are many, many constituencies that each, in their own way, at different levels, unevenly perhaps, were expressing themselves, on their particular issues, but now have a vehicle to speak together in a common voice on kind of the overarching theme. And that's very important because the progress we can make on any given issue, given the opposition we face, is limited. But as they say, the rising tide lifts all boats. So IBC is that rising tide. And with the strength and the growth and the development of IBC, we see the Armenian issue and the Coptic issue and the Ethiopian issue and the Hellenic issues and the Lebanese issue. All these issues rise in importance and impact in Washington. So I want to share, certainly with our Armenian audience, but with everybody else, that IDC is in a sense a coalition. It's a family, and we all have a very, very, very vital place in making sure that this voice grows.
Very well said. And it's just as we see in Scripture, right? We see that the body of Christ. When one part of the body is hurting, we all have to come to the assistance of that part of the body. And so it is a blessing to be here at the intersection where all these different communities are coming together. And I think what I love about your work with the ANCA and something that we really value at IDC is our issues, our policy, and we do advocacy. But for us, we're not in this, for political reasons. Maybe an outsider would look at it that way, but for us, this is all personal. These are, our families, and in many cases, our stories, or maybe they're the stories that we've been called. They're situations that we've been really called to push for, in solidarity with those who are still being persecuted. So, you guys have done great work on that end, and I'm proud of the work that we've been able to accomplish together, and just promoting the nonpartisan nature of the issues and
Yeah,
working with both sides of the aisle on them.
yeah, that's
I did want to touch
a
as well.
hallmark of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I want to underscore that it's really been a hallmark of IDC's work to be nonpartisan and or bipartisan, and to that when IDC walks into an office, they're walking into the office because of their deeply held beliefs, not because they're carrying water for any political party, not because they are helping any particular politician. They have an ideal, and it's at one level, it's a spiritual ideal that we all have our place. We're all God's children, and that is so powerful and so transcendent that I think between that sort of powerful message plus the hard work that all the folks do on the IDC team, that's why the great recipe for success.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that really carries us over into, I mean, the next issue I wanted to touch on that your organization's been so helpful in, which is you're advocating for Christianity in regions where it's legitimately at threat of going extinct, and really, and we're very concerned about the situation, namely in Iraq and Syria. And so, obviously, in Syria right now, our number one, I mean, we've seen the Christian population decline by at least 50% over the course of the Syrian civil war. Right now, we're seeing that ISIS is resurging. We're also seeing Turkey and Turkish backed militias playing a very concerning role. In particular, we've seen Turkish backed militias ethnic cleansing, as Nobel Peace Prize winner Nadia Murad has stated, against Christians, Yazidis, Kurds, other communities as well. As Amy Austin Holmes has pointed out, the Council on Foreign Relations, Turkey's violated the U.S. brokered ceasefire in northeastern Syria over 800 times, including over 120 violations in Tel Tamr. And so we're very concerned. And so we are really looking for a strong response to this from the U.S., but also we are looking, as it relates to Syria, for stronger U.S. engagement in the Northeast, where we do see religious freedom. We do see religious coexistence, at practice, which is so crucial. And then in Iraq, we're very excited. Pope Francis is going to Iraq this week, and he's going to be meeting with actually members of all religious communities, but he's especially going to be ministering to those who survived the ISIS genocide. And the work here is, I mean, this is no easy task. We know that there were 1.5 million Christians in Iraq before 2003. Then after the war, the sectarianism, and the genocide, there's less than 250,000 today. They're legitimately at threat of going extinct. And we've seen some great work done on this. Obviously, we work together to get the genocide recognized. We've seen strong bipartisan engagement with folks such as Vice President Mike Pence, Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, Congressman Berry, and many others working together across the aisle and ushering in U.S. assistance to genocide survivors. We've seen about $400 million go to genocide survivors in Iraq and Syria. And so pushing for that to continue is huge. But another challenge that has to be looked at here is there is a security challenge, and that many Christians and Yazidis are internally displaced persons, and they actually cannot return home because there are Iranian-backed militias that are occupying their communities. And surprise, surprise, we're also seeing that Turkey has begun bombarding parts close to Sinjar under with their kind of ongoing conflict with the PKK, and so that is preventing some Yazidis from also returning home. So there are big challenges, and also these communities. It's been years now. They are devastated, and I think the Pope's visit is going to bring hope. It's going to show them that they're not forgotten. But in terms of what the U.S. can do, these security challenges need attention, and continuing to provide assistance is so vital. So we're working hard there, and obviously there is with regards to the Armenian people, there are historic presences of Armenians in both of these countries, obviously. So we know this is of significance to the ANCA as well.
Yeah, no, it's the horrors visited on all Iraqis and Syrians. I mean, been a nightmare for us. The fate of our community in Aleppo has been particularly devastating. I teach Sunday school at our local Armenian church, Stephen, and I know a lot of other Sunday school teachers around the country, and a lot of other priests, and a lot of other people who are active in our church and our community. So many of them trace their roots back to Aleppo, to a city that welcomed genocide survivors after 1915, and it still is, but to a lesser extent, like a wellspring of Armenian faith and community and identity. And to see the horrors visited upon Aleppo is terrible for the people of Aleppo, but will also have a ripple effect throughout our diaspora. It's really a great loss, and we're doing everything we can to see the Syrian people recover, and among the Syrian people, the Armenians, certainly in Aleppo and Damascus, in Kesab, and elsewhere in Syria. We're very, very devoted to that and deeply appreciative of IDC's work.
Oh, it's absolutely critical, and I mean we are very grateful as well to be working with the prelates of the Apostolic Church in the Eastern Prelacy, the Western Prelacy, and it's been very touching meeting even members of especially of the Armenian Apostolic Church clergy who are from Syria, lay people. The stories that you hear are they're unforgettable. Even I'm good friends with Sipan, who's on your staff at ANCA. I remember him even sharing a story in Iraq once of going to visit, I believe it was a seminary one day. This was during the war, and then a couple of days later, the seminary was no more, blown to rubble. So it's shocking. Yeah.
Stephen, I think I should share this for some of our viewers who may not know. The IDC has a religious advisory board, which includes representation across sort of the broad spectrum of faith leaders in the Middle East, and as you mentioned, the prelates of the Armenian Apostolic Church in the East and West, His Holiness Aram I, the Catholicos of Gilead in Lebanon, has been a great partner of IDC, and that's just the Armenian component of it. I know that so many. It's really a remarkable group, and maybe it might be the most meaningful intersection between sort of the faith leadership of the Middle East and American politics or American policymaking. It's something that didn't exist for many years, and now that it exists, I ask myself, well, why didn't it always exist? And this is just another contribution that IDC has brought to our discourse in Washington.
Oh, it's absolutely. I mean, it's well said, and that was a big challenge, and that's what IDC has always been about. Organization is together, Catholics, Orthodox, Protestants, Eastern and Western Christians. I should even mention we have a member of our religious advisory board. We're doing a roundtable conversation on the Pope's visit to Iraq this Thursday at 11 a.m. And really, what I'm really excited about is that obviously the Pope is Catholic, but we're converging a roundtable of folks from other Christian traditions in Iraq to reflect on this visit and what it means. And so we are very happy about the work that we've been able to do in bringing people together.
Yeah, you're definitely the religious roundtable for the Middle East here in DC. That's awesome.
Oh, yes, most certainly. And that really takes us to the last bit of our work, which this last year has consumed most of our energy, that we've worked together really closely with you guys. And that has been combating state sponsors of Christian persecution. And there's really three that we have our eyes fixated on at the moment that we're laser focused on. The first is going to be Iran. And we're really concerned, especially with Iran's support for terrorist organizations across the region, such as Hezbollah in Lebanon and other militias in Iraq and Syria. Obviously in Lebanon, Hezbollah is possibly destabilizing the country, or actively is destabilizing the country, but Lebanon's really at risk of becoming a failed state or imploding into conflict because of what Hezbollah is doing. But we're also seeing the same thing in Iraq and Syria. I mentioned about the Iranian-backed militias in Iraq, but even in Syria, Iranian-backed forces have caused great devastation and have persecuted Christians. The second country that we're really concerned about at the state level is Saudi Arabia. This may be the worst violator of religious freedom in the world. They completely prohibit the construction of churches, synagogues, temples in the country. With that being said, this country even discriminates against its own Shia minority. And it really, I mean, the reality is the United States Committee on International Religious Freedom has been recommending Saudi Arabia for country of particular concern status, which, if accepted by the Secretary of State, should include sanctions. However, while the Secretary of State's been accepting this designation, there's been an indefinite waiver on sanctions against Saudi Arabia since 2004. And so many people in our community are very concerned about, obviously, the Khashoggi assassination, the war in Yemen. But we've been really telling people, if you want to really go to the root of what's wrong with this country and the lack of accountability, you have to go back about 15 years at least. And this problem needs to be addressed because the egregiousness of the religious freedom issue in Saudi Arabia, it's unparalleled. I mean, there's no other country in the world where you see that type of repression where there's literally not one single church. And then the last country, and we work very closely on this one, is Turkey. And obviously it's ANCA, it's IDC, it's the Hellenic American Leadership Council, and so many others. But what we saw from Turkey in 2020 was completely unacceptable. Converting obviously the core church, the Hagia Sophia, into mosques. The Christians who were not killed or forcibly displaced or fled Turkey during the genocide. Namely, that's like 0.2% of Turkey's population now is Christian. And it's over 98% Muslim. And so the idea that you would need to convert two churches that are, almost 2,000 years old is just an egregious offense to cultural heritage. But even Erdogan calling Christians remnants of the sword, a non-pejorative term in Turkish, is unacceptable. We've talked about what Turkey's done in Syria, but even because in Syria, these Turkish-backed militias, they're jihadist militias. And even Michael Rubin with the American Enterprise Institute and the Rojava Information Center, there's a list of former ISIS fighters who are fighting in Turkish militias. These are not, there was a lot of misinformation that was going on about who these forces were, but we know who they are now. And it's been incredibly concerning seeing Turkey even transport these forces to Artsakh, and they were used to fight, and they were used to commit an onslaught against a Christian population, an Armenian population that goes back. You can tell this better than I could, but at least to the first century AD. And I'll never forget how shocking it was to have the Archbishop of Artsakh. You were able to arrange for him to speak at IDC Summit last September, and he just gave a general message about the situation. And 1 week later, they were being shelled. It's just remarkable. And so what we're seeing with Turkey is just there's a need for accountability. The U.S. needs to call Turkey out and call Erdogan specifically out for promoting religious bigotry and prejudice. And then also this issue of supporting terrorism it's a national security issue. And so the work that you guys have done this has been pioneering. We learned from you. We love working with you on it. And it's a top priority for us in 2021.
Absolutely. And Stephen, I cannot express, words will not do justice to the appreciation and the gratitude we feel to IDC. Going back to the battle for the passage of the genocide resolution, these are tough battles. In DC, you go up against some pretty heavy hitters and you make some enemies, and IDC did not shy away at all, and they shoulder to shoulder and high marks, A+. And then on Artsakh, the same is true. IDC stood with us in defending the indigenous Armenian Christian population of Artsakh during the attack by Azerbaijan, backed by Turkey, backed by mercenaries, ISIS-backed mercenaries. Not a lot of people did that. That was there were a lot of people who were afraid to take sides. IDC did not shy away from standing on the side of truth and freedom and faith and the right of people to live on their ancient homeland, to practice their faith. IDC stood shoulder to shoulder with the Armenians in our time of really the greatest crisis we faced in at least a generation. And for that, we're very, very grateful. And we hope to bring that same level of commitment and devotion to the full range of issues on the IDC agenda. And just as Armenians were grateful, right? And we appreciate the work of IDC. So too must we add our voices to the work that IDC is doing. And then they have, obviously a pro-Armenian aspect of their work, and support that for sure. But also the other issues, help the population in Syria and Iraq, and deal with the Saudi issue and the Lebanon issue. All these are, in a sense, Armenian issues as well, because the fate of Armenians in that region is not decided as like silo. It's not something that's set apart from the rest of the region. If we see the trends that are currently in place continue about the destruction of the Christian presence in this part of the world, if we see intolerance unchecked, this will eventually, these horrors will be visited upon Armenia. So it's both in our interest, but it's also the right thing to do. So I do encourage all those listening today, all those within earshot of this video and wherever it's shared across social media, to sign up with IDC, to help IDC as an activist, as a donor, as a volunteer. I know that, Stephen, you have chapters across the country that would certainly welcome the participation of all supporters, including Armenian supporters. So perhaps you could tell us about, like, what are some of the different ways between chapters and financial support and activism that folks can be helpful to IDC.
It's a great question. We really encourage people to do three things. That's pray, act, and give. So obviously, prayer straight up, that is the most basic thing that we ask of people. And our brothers and sisters in the Middle East need it. When it comes to action, I encourage people, the most basic thing you can do that takes less than a minute is you can go to indefenseofchristians.org, and there's a Take Action tab. If you click on it, you'll find all the action alerts that we have. And you'll see on the website now, there's an action alert. Tell President Biden to recognize the Armenian genocide. Tell Congress to support Coptic Christians. Tell Congress to recognize the Simile massacre and other issues. And we continue to update that. So make sure that you're taking action on those issues. And if you want to even become more active, we have chapters across the country that you can join. And my colleague, Sarah Basile, who does a great job, not only with our communications and our social media, but she also does a fantastic job with our chapters as well. So you can go on our website and reach out to her. And she's a fun person to work with. Your advocates would have a great time getting organized with her. And then the last thing is just giving. And that is each person's situation is different. But obviously, if you're praying, if you're acting, your support means the world. And no one can say this better than you, Aram, or attest to this better than you. But we are small nonprofit organizations, and we are going head to head with giant, massive lobbying firms. I mean, the Turks, the Egyptians, the Gulf states, these guys shell out serious money, and they get former members of Congress, former high-level staffers to go and spread basically false messaging to our governments. And it's up to us. We're the ones who are fighting against that. And so, I think that you would understand this better than anyone, but supporting groups like ANCA, supporting groups like IDC is so incredibly important. And I do just want to say as well that I think the work that's been done is incredible. And I mean, I give all the credit as well to our president, to Tawfiq Baklini, to yourself, Aram. But we have some great staffs. I've mentioned Sarah. We've got Rich Gazelle on our team. I know Elizabeth, Teresa, Sepan, nurses who's managing this call. You guys, I mean, we are an all-star team fighting together for these issues. And so it's all the more important that we continue to invest in our organization so we can continue adding players to that all-star team.
I 100% agree, Stephen. Sometimes I don't know where ANCA ends and IDC begins. I feel like we are one team and one family, and every dollar that gets donated to IDC is a major force multiplier. As Stephen said, the opposition is intense, but because the message resonates so powerfully, and because there's spirit behind it and truth behind it, and really hardworking people behind it, it is just immensely powerful. In a city like Washington, where sometimes things get, the coin of the realm is PAC donations and lobbying dollars, IDC in a sense operates at a level above that because they're just so manifestly on the right side of the issues that they just bring, the Holy Spirit to our struggle. And So every dollar that's invested, every hour that's invested of time, every meeting, every Zoom call, everything that you can bring to the table through Sarah and others really makes a difference. And I think that the sea change that we've seen over the last 7 years since IDC was founded, I think those were that's like the precursor to an even brighter future and even more powerful destiny for the work that IDC is doing. So with that, Stephen, I just want to invite you to say, share a couple of closing remarks. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you so much for all the work that you do, and Tawfiq and Sarah and Rich and the rest of your remarkable team. But I'll leave the final word to you, along with my sincere thanks.
Yeah, well, what I think what all of us just want to say is, we consider you all to be family as well. We're very excited to work with you this year, whether it's advocating for support for Armenia, aid for the people of Artsakh, accountability towards Turkey. We're here. We're ready to stand shoulder to shoulder with you. We're going to push really hard this year for President Biden to recognize the Armenian genocide as well, and we're going to continue to combat all actors across the world who seek to deny it. I wanted just to share with people who are watching as well that on Friday, March 19th at 1 p.m., ANCA, IDC, and the Hellenic American Leadership Council are going to be doing a policy briefing that's open to the public about how the U.S. can combat Turkey as it relates to spreading religious bigotry and directly persecuting Christians and their support of terrorism. And so we're really hoping to change U.S. policy as it relates to Turkey. That's important. So that event's coming up on Friday, March 19th. Our website is indefenseofchristians.org. And I just say I can't speak highly enough of the work that the ANCA does. So to all of you who are watching and who are watching through the ANCA Facebook page or Twitter, just know that you're involved with a great organization. And it's been a pleasure sharing about what IDC does as well. We'd love to have you stand with us as well.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Thank you to all of you for listening, and we'll be back online again soon. Thank you.